The month off. My favorite is that on our no one gets to see our outlines, right? And so my favorite thing is that you actually plan ahead and figure out the thing you want to say when we introduce ourselves, and I leave mine blank.
Yeah. That is a thing that is kind of unique about ourselves. I'm all about the planning, and you're about the improv. I am the oven, and you are the microwave.
Yep, very true.
E3, baby. E3's here. E3. E3. It was like 6 hours of fucking presentations yesterday and today that I've been watching, just like continuously. I feel like I'm there.
How does it feel to be back in school?
I feel like I literally I'm just like I'm taking notes. I'm like writing things down. I'm like
I on the other hand have not looked at it once.
It's not happening in person this year. It's all digital. So it feels like I've been going from place to place.
So would you say it's E4 this year? The E Electronic Entertainment Expo?
What? Yeah. What's the extra E for?
It's the terminology, right? Like the E, like e-learning.
Yeah,
like
it's already the Electronic Entertainment Expo. Are you telling me that you want it to be the Electronic Entertainment
I'm
Expo?
using the E in a sort of different term here, and like we use the E electronically, but also like it kind of encompasses online.
Oh,
it's not necessarily like E. We use it more of like E, like
the E3.
Yeah, so it's the E3.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
E4.
It's yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm into it. All right, folks. Hi, my name is David Baxter, and I am live from the floor at E3. And E4.
Hi, I'm Johnny Bartlett, and I'm that one bead of sweat that's slowly trickling down your back until it gets dangerously close to your butt crack, but you can't reach down there because you're in public.
That was so specific. And we are
the Bundle Bourgeoisie.
Ooh.
Or for those more elitist out there, the Bourgeoisie.
The Bourgeoisie.
I've been called out for lying to people, but I've told
words.
people that we were lying about the pronunciation of it from the beginning. So.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's our own thing now. It's we've made our own word, our own pronunciation, our own meaning.
Mm-hmm.
We are the smiths of our own words. We are the
we've
gods
created
of our
a distinction from the actual bourgeoisie and the lowly proletariats cosplaying as the bourgeoisie, which are the bourgeoisie.
Yeah, and plus, it's bougier, baby.
It is.
So we do cover games from the humble choice, and that's what we're going to be doing today. The first game that we're going to be covering is Worms Rumble.
The second game is Effie.
Then we got Civilization Platinum Edition.
And then we have Eichenfell.
Next to last, we have Panzer Paladin.
And then, last to last, we have the Milky Way Prince, the Vampire Star.
Sorry, we did take a break last time. Should we address that?
Yeah, we took the month off. I guess we didn't release any sort of acknowledgement on the podcast. If you follow our socials, you'd know.
No.
But we took the month off because life is overwhelming and we were overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's basically it. New jobs, things happening, and wanting to get things done.
And working on the podcast a little bit. We got some new artwork in commission and everything.
That's true. We do actually have things coming on the podcast. I was working on things on my stream, kind of making that a little bit better. But for the most part, I was watching just a lot of The Handmaid's Tale. I mean, I am going to out myself.
I mean, I've been working 12-hour days, so like...
Yeah, that's true. I've been working a nice 10 to 6, so...
Cushy.
Well,
should we get into the meat of these worms?
Yeah, let's get into the meat, the real grime, the real...
We're going to show you how the sausage is made today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna cut it open. We're gonna show you all the giblets and bits. So today, Worms Rumble, published by Team 17 Digital. I'm kind of coming to realize that Team 17 is like a little bit prolific. They made all of the Worms games and the Alien Breed games, as well as Lemmings and lots of other stuff.
Like the Lemmings? The classic Lemmings?
Yeah, like the Lemmings.
Oh.
Yeah, like the classic Lemmings game.
Damn.
Yeah. So
I think I still have that for my PSP.
They've been here for a while. They've been here since the 90s. But they're also a publisher, and they're a really good one at that. They published The Escapist, Panarium, Overcooked, Blasphemous, Ageless, My Time at Portia, Hell Let Loose, Ukulele, Forged Battalion, Automa Chef, Golf with Your Friends, Narrate a Boy, Moving Out, Genesis Alpha 1, Neon Abyss, and Avon Colony, and even more still. A lot of those are games that we've covered in the podcast, too.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, we're going to be covering another one of their games, Going Under, next week. So that's exciting.
I'm so excited for that one.
Oh, yeah, I am so excited. I haven't even touched it yet, but it's like a cupcake that's sitting there waiting for me.
I'm kind of glad you took that one, because I would have just obsessed over it.
Yeah, I'll at least give you a couple of games to play that you'll enjoy rather than just one that you play for obsessively. So the price for it is $15 alone, and then $41 for all of the DLC that comes on top of that. You get the deluxe edition with the Humble Choice, which comes with the base game and the pre-order bonus stuff and the Legends pack. Here's the thing about all of the DLC. It's just extra outfits, weapon skins, titles, and banners for your Worms. That's it. You're not missing out on anything if you don't get the DLC for this game. You don't miss out on any critical gameplay stuff. It's just outfits and random cosmetic things. So just keep that in mind. What is the game? It is a multiplayer 2D arena combat game. It seems to be sort of going for like the lifestyle kind of genre of game, similar to other battle royales that have come out recently, like Fortnite, Call of Duty, stuff like that. You know, there's daily challenges to encourage playing all the time, and the game is loaded with bars to level and grind.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of hollow progression in this game, in my opinion. It's a real stark departure from what fans of the Worms franchise are used to. Traditionally, it's been a turn-based casual strategy game kind of affair. There's no turns here at all. Everything is in real time, and it really stresses like twitch reflexes and skill over careful planning and execution. So, if that's what you're looking for, this game probably isn't for you. That being said, moving into the controls, it's super simple. You just move, jump, fire, and you have like a grapple or jetpack movement ability and a grenade. That's it. It's super simple. It's really easy to get a handle on, but it does have a decently high skill ceiling to master, like the actual movement with the, especially the movement items, the grapple and the jetpack. The weapons in the game, there are bunch of them, but some of them are kind of better than others. There is a bazooka, an assault rifle, a shotgun, a baseball bat, a hand cannon, a sheep launcher, a plasma blaster, a rocket shield, a sentry launcher, and something called a hammerhead.
That's some real thorough journalism there.
Yeah. Thanks. I just wanted to get the names in there. Because, I mean, a lot of them you can kind of tell what they are when you hear them. It's like, oh, man, a bazooka. That shoots a rocket. Assault rifle. Gee whiz. What could that be? Some weapons, like the sheep launcher, which, like, launches a sheep that sort of, like, waltzes around and then explodes, is, like, extremely overpowered. Because it does a shit ton of burst damage right away. Same with like the bazooka and the plasma blaster as well, which you like have to charge up and then launch a beam. When you kind of get a really good weapon in this game and you know how to use it, you can really just like dominate the competition. It seems like it was kind of designed so that like you find an item and then you're like, oh, nice, I got the item that I wanted, you know, in that sort of battle royale type of thing. It's weird because the game is like more popular as a deathmatch game than it is in anything else.
Mm-hmm.
There are also grenades. You have like regular banana and holy grenades, and they're fun to use, but they're nothing special. So the modes in this game, there's team deathmatch, and last worm standing, and a training mode. 4 modes. That's it. Deathmatch gets old pretty quickly. I feel like the weapons are way more balanced for the battle royale mode, just because it's designed for like to make you feel like powerful with certain weapons, and certain other weapons just feel like dinky little pea shooters, like the hand cannon. These modes often devolve into like just getting like the best weapon and then steamrolling, which it isn't that much fun to me. Last Worm Standing, though, I did find to be pretty fun. I played that a little bit with Johnny on stream.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's more about like sticking together with your partner and just trying to like work together as a team to take out all the other people. It's permanent. When you're out, and there's like revives, and it's the typical sort of battle royale fare, but in the 2D sort of Worms universe, I guess. the ever beloved and treasured Worms universe.
WCU.
It seems odd to sort of be like, I'm gonna become like a Worms gamer. I'm gonna become like a Worms streamer. I'm gonna play this game Worms all day. Like, it's not a bad game necessarily, Like, it's fun, but it's not like captivating in the way that I wish it kind of was. And lobbies for Last Worm Standing are never full. Good luck finding a full match, because apparently there are up to 30 players in a lobby, and I could only ever get like maybe 6 or 7 players at most. I think that I don't want to come back to this game, and I'm not sure that it will succeed in this really crowded multiplayer market that it's entering, when there are so many other better free alternatives,
Mm-hmm.
I think some might enjoy sort of getting good at the game and then curb stomping, random pubbies and public matches. But after a while, I don't think that there's really anything substantial here, with just the few game types and no single player content or anything else outside of that. It's just kind of a grind fest until you're done with the game. It's not substantial enough to keep my attention.
But you know what did keep my attention? Effie.
Yeah.
Our next game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A game.
I thought that you didn't like this one.
I kind of liked. So, all right, let's get into this. This is a game made by Inverge Studios. And it cost $19.99, which I was kind of shocked to see the actual price tag of this game, given that it presents itself sort of looking like an asset flip, and also there's not a lot of depth to it. But in a bundle, it's a great little grab. The gameplay is very akin to the sort of like hack and slash, Darksiders, God of War genres. You button mash squares, a light attack, triangles, a heavy attack. But it's not complex at all like some of those games. There's hardly a combo system. There's very light combos you can do, but nothing crazy. And it's more like most enemies only take like 2 or 3 hits to go down. There's some enemies that you have to do heavy attacks on to kill them, but it's not that crazy. It's all in all, the combat isn't crazy complex, and the exploration there's in the levels there's really nothing off the beaten path. You can find little runes to give you bonus XP to level up quicker. Or there's some like little Easter eggs and stuff hidden throughout, but nothing like, for the most part, you can kind of grind through these levels. There's some relics that give you like lore on the world and stuff, but you can blast through them pretty easy. Most of the relics are like, oh, it's behind that one house that looks kind of conspicuous, and it's very obvious that there's a treasure chest hidden in there. So, not a lot of in-world or in-level exploration, and then the outer world. Again, the outer world space, it's massive and like beautiful, but it's pretty empty for its size, and the landmarks and places where there are things are pretty easy to identify. So it's mostly just surfing around on your surfboard from like one point to another, and not a lot of like, oh, there's something off in the distance that I want to explore. It's more like, oh, there's a village 10 feet off the side of the road that I can clearly see where there must be something at. So not a lot in the sense of exploration either. And the combat gets what little difficulty there is in the combat gets even easier as you get upgrades for your character later on. You eventually get like a charged heavy attack and a charged light attack. And both of them are AoEs, and both of them one-shot pretty much everything. So you can just run around spamming your like charged attacks and kill everything as you just waltz through these areas. The abilities definitely trivialize things. And the boss fight, I would say boss fight, there's 4 different times you fight the boss in this game, and it plays out pretty much the same every time. So, like, it's either we spawn some ads and you kill the ads and that damages the boss, or you run through the environment through, like, traps and obstacles and interact with the thing, and that's what damages the boss. There's not a lot of variety in the boss fights or anything, and it's one character. It's not like, there's 15 different things we encounter in fights. It's one main villain that you fight 4 times. So, it did, though. I will say, playing this game, I had a realization about what I love so much about old school games like Banjo-Kazooie and the lot, and like where a lot of the charm came from for me as a kid with them. And it's that it didn't feel like the developers thought of everything. It feels like they thought of a bunch of stuff, but in the end, there was a lot of dumb little things you could do that clearly, like, the developers weren't quite thinking of players playing the game in that way, that you could kind of like manipulate and exploit. It was like buggy, but buggy in a fun way. And I found this game to kind of be the same way. There was little areas of the terrain that you could tell you weren't supposed to be able to jump on, but you could jump onto it and skip parts of the level. Or like, immediately I found out a way to extend the jumping range by about twice as long as you could by doing a combo in the air. And so there's a lot of like little things that it's like clearly the developers weren't thinking of players like, I'm gonna try to fuck with this game. But I think being able to fuck with the game in the way developers weren't expecting it is where a lot of that charm came from for me as a kid.
That is very true. I think that a lot of older games like that do have that sort of charm in that they can be broken so fundamentally. I think of Mario 64 as one of the classic examples, and like how broken that game is fundamentally now. Just to move around, and like how people have just completely taken it to the extreme now with like, half a press nonsense, like teleporting through parallel universes. Look that video up if you've never seen it.
You've shown me it. It's great. Yeah. But exactly that. Yeah, like there's a lot of charm in like outsmarting the game. And I think a lot of games nowadays, even the ones that try to capture that sort of like nostalgic youth, you can't outsmart because the developers do have, massive teams of people thinking of answers to everything and testing every little moment of it. So it was kind of nice being able to relive that, like, haha, I beat you game, I'm better than you. The story itself was pretty milquetoast, It was a good old redemption story. The lazy hero refused the call to adventure, so the witch cursed him, and then to get his youth back, he had to go fight the evil witch.
I'm sorry, did you just describe Banjo-Kazooie?
Yeah, exactly. Like it is basically Banjo-Kazooie.
That's literally like the plot of Banjo-Kazooie. A lazy bear gets cursed by a witch and has to go on a quest in order to save his home.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty much that. You're fighting for your youth rather than property rights, but it's two sides of the same coin. But it is
a struggle for the modern era.
Exactly. This one is sort of presented in the like meta narrator style though, so it's you've got the narrator talking over everything you do, and they make some cheeky comments as you go through things, which is kind of fun. But all in all, not a lot of depth in the story. You find out in spoilers, I guess. I mean, not really.
Is there spoiler?
It's spoilers for Effie. You find out in the end.
Spoiler warning.
That Effie is the child of the character you're playing, and so he used that youth he gained to have a child, and they named the game after the child of the dad you're playing. So, yeah.
I mean, that's almost not even a spoiler. It's sort of like, hey, it's the name of the game.
Yeah, it's not really. It's not. I mean, it's kind of given away pretty early too. But just that the ending cutscene is that. So like it figured maybe spoilers, but the game all in all is 4 hours long. So like it's not terribly long. It's a very short game. It's really easy to get through. It's a dad story. If you're a dad and you like dad stories, it's great for you. Yeah, he has a kid, and that's relatable for dads.
There's a lot of competition for dad stories nowadays on games.
It's almost as if millennials are the ones who grew up playing games and now they're having kids. Weird. But decent game. I mean, I didn't hate it. Incredibly easy to 100%. I 100%ed this game in my first playthrough, basically. I had to look up like one location of a relic, and that was it. The whole playthrough took me probably about 4 hours, including 100% all achievements. So if you're an achievement hunter, like, this is a great one for you. Otherwise, I think it's a great introduction to the genre for like little kids. So if you're a dad and you got a little kid that you want to start getting into games, could be a good place to break them into it. Like, other than that,
there you go.
Lacks a lot of substance, but it's hard to complain about a game that doesn't overstay its welcome. So
I feel that when a game is short and you can actually beat it in that amount of time, it's sort of like I can't complain that much. But then also I did complain about Eternium or whatever it was.
When games take like an entire civilization to play, it's not fucking fun. Like, I don't want to be playing for 50 centuries.
Well, let me tell you, I love playing for just days, weeks, months at a time of a single game. I love putting all of my time and energy into one singular game. That's why I play Sid Meier's Civilization 6 Platinum Edition. Just kidding. It's not actually why. I play on quick mode. Every single game I play the quick mode because I don't have patience for that. This is a grand strategy game developed by Firaxis Games, and also apparently Asper for the Mac and Linux versions. They're also the publishers for those versions. Firaxis has made all of the other Sid Meier's games, from Pirates to I don't know, probably basketball, and the XCOM games as well.
Sid Meier's NBA.
Sid Meier's NBA, coming soon to a PlayStation near you. Published by 2K Games. They have done a lot of games that you probably heard about, from Borderlands to WWE, NBA, Bioshock, Battleborn, Spec Ops The Line, The Darkness 2, Mafia, and many, many more. The price for this game is off the wall. I don't get it. It's $60 alone with no DLC. $48.30 with all of the DLC in the Anthology Edition. And then it's $78.96 for the Platinum Edition, which is what you get with the Humble Choice, which comes with everything but the New Frontier Pass, which is another $40 unless you get it on sale for $10. Just to summarize, why? I mean, I get it, but why? No one is ever going to buy this for $60 when you could buy it for so much cheaper. Is it because it's on sale? It might be because they're having a thing right now at the PC Game Show where it's like you can get the Platinum Edition for $10, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's an E3 news tidbit that if you hear this around the time that the podcast airs, you might want to look into. But anyway, what is this game with this bizarre pricing scheme? It is a virtual board game where you play as one of many different civilizations throughout history as you compete with other civilizations to have the best, most advanced military science, culture, or diplomatic favor. You start from the Stone Age and you build your way all through the eras, all the way to the Digital Age and beyond. It's this really, really fun grand strategy game that starts in a very small scope where you're just choosing where to build your capital, and it's just figuring out the first couple of technologies like pottery and animal husbandry, and then it builds in complexity the longer that you play the game. I would sort of compare it to like Risk, but you can win without your military, and it's more about like the sort of lore building and civilization building and sort of it's like a board game, you know? So it was described as an inverted pyramid, which basically, the way that it works is at the beginning of the game, you only have a couple of simple decisions that you need to make. Where is my capital? What am I going to send this warrior to go do? What am I going to have my workers do? Like simple decisions. And as you start founding more cities and you have more and more troops to manage and you start interacting with other civilizations and more is sort of introduced to you as the game goes on, it is like an inverted pyramid of complexity that at the beginning it's you only get the tip, and then the further that you get on, the more, and it's all encompassing, and suddenly it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you have declared nuclear war against the Zulu tribe, who have become like the technological superior, like they have mechs or something, that's sort of what the game ends up becoming in its late stages.
And that's something I want to say as someone who's like covered a lot of these kind of styles of games for the podcast, and that I think Civ does so well is start at such a small scale that by the time you get to the larger, more complex stuff, it doesn't feel as intimidating. Whereas a game like Imperator Rome just fucking drops you into it, and like you're already making macro and micro level decisions that's really overwhelming to start.
100%. And that's one thing that I really appreciate about this game, is that it is actually very good for beginners. It has an incredible tutorial. We can play as like either Cleopatra or Gilgamesh in this game. But just, I always feel like it's been a good game to introduce beginners to sort of like this larger turn-based RTS genre. Because, I mean, like, you're going to have to fail. You're going to fail a lot playing this game. But that's part of the fun, is failing and then going back and then applying the lessons that you've learned about building your civilization to your next playthrough. And trying out like a different civilization, because in this game there are so many customization options. Oh my god, it is awesome. There's like 50 playable civilizations when you have all of the DLC, which is the most in any one of these games, I believe. It has 8 optional game mode modifiers as well, which like really fundamentally change up the game depending on which one you choose. There's an apocalypse mode that makes it like just completely like apocalyptic, and you have like a soothsayer who can like tell the future, and it's like natural disasters occur more often. And then you have to actually stop a comet from destroying the Earth. That's like the end goal of that scenario. You can do barbarian clans, which make it so that the barbarians actually have more personality, and it fixes a huge complaint that I had with Civ 5 actually, which was that the barbarians in that game are just dumb. They just attack you and they don't do anything interesting. And it sort of is reductive of what we would call barbarians in real life, people that came from Barbos specifically, was what that barbarian refers to. And like, they are actually a playable civilization in Civ 5. Okay, so I got my etymology a little bit wrong. The root word for this word, barbarian, is barbaros, and it actually has its roots in the realm of geography off of the Barbary coast, home to the infamous Barbary pirates. However, barbarians were historically used by the Greeks to refer to basically any non-Greek. That is Egyptians, Persians, Indians, Celts, Germans, Phoenicians, Etruscans, Macedonians, Carthaginians, Vikings, Goths. A lot of these people are playable characters, and it's a little weird.
Holy mackerel!
In Civilization 6, it makes it a lot more interesting to interact with the barbarians, because they have clans now, and they are like a set personality type that they kind of had that before, but they would always attack you. And in this game, you can actually bribe them to not attack you, which would make it more likely for them to become a city-state later on in the game.
Okay.
Or you can hire them. You could basically like hire barbarians to become warriors, and you get like free warriors and free units from them, and that also makes them become a city-state faster. And then the final thing that you can do is pay them to go to war with another civilization. So if you have a barbarian clan that you're in contact with that's like on the other side of the world, and they're like, right next to an enemy civilization that you're not friends with, you can pay them to attack the other civilization, with like all of their troops.
You can pay radical militias across the world to violently disrupt and try to overthrow governments not related to yours?
Yeah, it's kind of wild, right? They're in it for the money.
Dang. That's such an interesting facet of economics that I don't think has really been explored.
So, I think that this game is really making strides in kind of becoming a more realistic interpretation of what it would be like to go from, prehistory to modern day, even though it does make a lot of concessions to, be a game. It's a lot of fun. The next mode, because I was going through the modes, that's right, is Dramatic Ages. So Dramatic Ages makes it so that after the beginning of the game, you're either in a Dark Age or a Golden Age. It's one or the other. And so you're always competing to try to be in the Golden Age. Otherwise, you have to deal with like a lot of disasters and horrible things happening in like your Dark Age, which that fundamentally changes up the game. Heroes and Legends adds just like these random, literally heroes and legends that you can find throughout the game that are like special units. You have to recruit them by meeting some requirements and then commissioning a town to like make something for them, and then that like brings them to your civilization. And one of them that I got in my game, for example, was this dude who could walk around and he could just eat up luxury resources, and then he advances your scientific progress doing that. Damn. So what I would do, I would just send him over to like other people's civilizations, and like right as they were expanding to a new area, I'd be like, yoink my rice, yoink my spice, yoink my tea. And I got a bunch of scientific progress and like advanced really far into the game doing that. Because of that, I feel like it's a little bit overpowered, potentially. It kind of breaks the balance of the game a little bit. But of course, the other civilizations, and if you're playing with other players can also get access to these heroes. So it adds an extra thing to sort of fight over. I think it'd be really fun in multiplayer. Monopolies and corporations I didn't really get to play with, but it's really recommended. That's sort of a late game thing. Secret Societies was interesting. It adds this sort of mystical element where you can appoint an advisor to, like, you get like governors that you can appoint to cities at a certain point in the game, and you can choose to appoint one of these secret society members to your government, and if you do that, then you lose access to all the other societies, and then you suddenly gain access to like a fundamental new game-changing thing. For one of the clans, it's like access to ley lines. You can like build things near, and it increases productivity, and no one else can see them but people that are a part of that secret society. That also interacts with like other secret societies later in the game. Like if another player is a part of like the Void Whisperers, and you're a part of like the Alchemist Society, then like they have a relationship, and like they have sort of commitments to each other. That's sort of like it becomes more of a factor late game, from what I understand. Which that's super cool, but it does sort of break the realism of the game a little bit. Tech in Civic Shuffle is really, really nice too. I think I'm probably just going to keep that on all the time, just because I like the randomness element. And there's also Zombie Defense, which I haven't tried, but from what I've heard, sounds like it's basically like barbarians always attacking you, the game. Mm-hmm. So if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead and try it. But the cool thing is that you can enable literally one of those game types or all of them at once, or none of them. It's really up to you, and one of them adds a lot of variability and unpredictability to repeat playthroughs, and it's so fun exploring like all the different options that they provide. Even though some of them I might only do once, like the Apocalypse and Zombie Defense one, and then never again, it's still fun to have them as options. Some of them kind of break the game balance, but others are like, I'm always going to have those on. Like Barbarian Clans and Tech and Civic Shuffle, I'm probably never going to not use those whenever I do a new game now. There are scenarios here. There aren't as many as there were in Civ 5, but I also feel like I was the only one that did them in Civ 5. There's like the Conquest of Alexander, Gifts of the Nile, Outback Tycoon, The Black Death. It's sort of like you get to go into like these sort of pre-built situations, and then you sort of have to try to win according to what's already been set up for you. There is also a world builder and a map editor and workshop and modding support for this game. So there's even more options available outside of the game to those who wish to seek them out. Yeah, just so much cool stuff about this game. There is some new stuff in this game that if you maybe played Civ 5, you might not know about. The districts are a new addition in this game that are a big deal. You basically like convert a land tile into a location that can be used to place more advanced buildings like libraries. And their effects can be multiplied after you get multiple districts near each other. And each district is attached to a certain resource like gold or science. Gathering Storm adds a lot of really cool new things that make the world feel a lot more reactive to what you're doing. It adds natural disasters and climate change stuff that affect early and late game decisions. Disasters usually have like a really bad negative effect in the short term, but provide improved tiles in the late game. For example, after a flood, the area will become like more rich and more abundant with food. And volcanoes, for example, are a thing in this now, and they are super high risk, high reward locations that like have incredibly nice like volcanic ash tiles, but also you run the risk of like having your entire town catch on fire every other weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really like these additions. And apparently all you need is Gathering Storm, because it includes all of the stuff from the previous expansion, Rise and Fall, which adds a lot of like diplomatic stuff, which is really interesting.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff that you have to worry about, like material, fuel, and like late game power consumption. Where like if you have to worry about like where you're getting your energy from. Is it like coal, and like how much impact are you having on the environment? If you have settlements that are located on the coast, then you have to worry about like late game sea level rising and like potentially losing your entire capital or something like that. Of course, you can build like blast walls and stuff to sort of defend against it, but it just adds more things that you sort of have to plan and consider as you're going along the game, and the environment feels more alive than it ever has in any previous game. There are these like World Congress meetings with the diplomacy features where you can like request aid from emergencies and stuff like that. So if you get hit by like a hurricane or something like that, then you can request the World Congress for aid and get like a bunch of money and resources and supplies to sort of fix everything. As long as you have good diplomatic favor and you sort of been helping other people out throughout the game, so it sort of reacts to your actions throughout the game. And I like games that are that in depth with how it sort of treats the player as an active entity throughout the world. But anyway, this game is awesome. I mean, apparently there are like literal rock bands that you can get later on as like a tile improvement, and like mechs that you can do, and just the fact that you can have like one civilization that's still in like the Stone Age practically, and like another civilization that's like got lasers and stuff, and that's sort of all going on in the same game. Is really, really impressive, and I love it so much. Civ 5 was my very first game on Steam. Very first. I didn't actually own any other game before that. So maybe I'm a little bit biased here, but I truly believe that you can play this game for like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours and still have fun throwing down, cooperating with a friend. It has some negative reviews on some of the expansions, and I kind of get it because it's just sort of like, oh, it's like one new thing here or there. But like if you can get it all on a good sale, which is what I usually do. I didn't buy this game until now. I wait until all of the DLC comes out, and then I get with all the DLC all in one. That's the best way to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because every new Civilization game is usually a bit of a downgrade compared to the last one with all the DLC. But now that Civ 6 has all of its DLC out and it's ready to go, I feel like it's a really fun experience to dive into right now. There's never been a better time. This is a great price to pick it up for how many hours of fun you will have playing this game. Just so much fun.
I'm gonna interrupt your segue here. I have a thing for you. I have a thing.
You're interrupting.
I don't have an introduction to this bit yet, David. I don't have an introduction. But I'm calling it. I'm calling it. I didn't even think of a name for it. Oh fuck. A currently untitled segment for this podcast.
Currently untitled segment for this podcast.
Yeah. So I did a lot of achievement getting this week. So I'm gonna give you the name of an achievement, and I want you to tell me what game it's from and what you have to do to get this achievement.
Okay. I don't think I'll know, but let's see.
The first one I've got for you is baby skin.
Is that like Binding of Isaac? Do you have to like skin a baby?
Oh no. This is from this week's bundle for now. It's just to narrow your chances down.
Is it Panzer Paladin?
It is not.
Is it Eichenfell?
No.
Oh fuck! Is it Milky Way Prince?
This is an achievement from Milky Way Prince.
Okay, why are you bringing this up now? This is a random time to bring this up.
Do you know what you have to do to get this achievement, David?
No.
You want to take a guess? Just a guess. Just give me your best thought of what you have to do to get baby's skin.
Do you have to put on the moisturizer?
Ooh, final answer?
Yes.
Close. It is to shave and see what happens.
Oh. Okay. I like it. So, is this going to be a recurring segment?
Oh, this will absolutely be a recurring segment. I wanted to introduce it.
Okay. Hell yeah, I love it. I like that segment. I'll come up with some achievements for you next time as well.
But our next
sneaky
game is Eichenfell.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought you were gonna give me an Eichenfell achievement. Which
Oh
is
no! This
leading
was just
up to
a
that.
completely separate segment from everything. This was just a fun little one-off to do, you know.
Oh man, you just sidewind me, you sidetracked me.
Eichenfell is a game from Happy Ray Games, published by Humble Games. I'm not going to list all the games Humble Games publishes every time they come up, because they're going to come up a lot, so.
Yeah, they're like, the developer that like is associated with the bundle, so
yeah, good like probably 5 out of every 10 games is published by them.
Yeah.
This game costs $19.99 full price normally outside of the bundle. And it is a phenomenal game, just to rip right out the bat here. The combat in the game is fantastic. It's very much in the vein of Paper Mario, in that sense that it's like, it is a turn-based game where you have like action buttons you have to press at the right time to execute your attacks properly. It's very straightforward of like, when your attack is landing or when their attack is landing, you press A, and if your timing is right, you reduce the damage or increase your damage. And it's really good. I mean, I really like adding the sort of like timing and reflex element to turn-based combat, because turn-based combat is pretty milquetoast without it. That's our word of the day. And
Milquetoast.
Milquetoast.
Write it down.
We're gonna cut in Joey B's face every time we say milk toast in this podcast on the YouTube edit.
Toast. We gotta say it a lot more, just to make you do a lot more work.
Right. But it does feel a bit unfair at times in this game. The difference between a failure and a success is usually the difference of like dealing 1 damage versus 20 or taking 1 damage versus 20. So like it is very crucial that you get your timing right. So there's failure, good, and great. The goods and the greats are even pretty far off. It's like 7 versus 20 usually, like at in game. So it's a real stark difference of like getting it successful versus failing it. And it can get a bit repetitive because like it's just timing, especially like when you've got the attack patterns down and everything. It's really just pushing the button at the right time. And if you zone out for like even 1 attack, it can mean the difference of restarting the entire boss fight, because you're taking 20 damage instead of 1. So you really have to stay focused in on the fights, which can be a bit of a drag. I found the progression throughout the whole game was really well handled, though. The exploration and everything was pretty well laid out, and where you had to go and everything. You got hints of where you'd go later as you were running through the areas. And they had a fast travel system so you could get around things easier. There's tons of variety in the builds that you can do and the gear that you get. There's 3 primary stats: power, defense, and speed. and each piece of gear reflects those stats in battle differently. It gives you some room to sort of explore and play around with, but also I found myself just mostly doing power builds because power was making the biggest difference in combat. Like, it was the difference of, like, power was letting me hit for 7 extra damage, whereas 4 points in defense reduced their attack by 1. Like...
Oh, yeah, that's not a good stat breakdown.
Yeah.
Get more damage.
Yeah.
That's like... It's like Pokemon, where it's like, all of my Pokemon will have damaging abilities instead of stat-based abilities, because it's the only effective tactic.
Exactly. Like, if things are dead, you don't have to worry about defending for as long. So, like, speed also made kind of a difference, but in the long run, I just figured I'd rather build around power. But still a lot of variety if you want to go that way. There's optional in-game bosses at the end, which is kind of nice, too. I wasn't really expecting that kind of inclusion from a game like this. I was expecting to be very much just like a linear story, but there are 3 optional bosses, I believe, is what it comes down to, and you have to unlock them by doing special things. So that's pretty cool that that's included in there. And combat, your combat is structured around the timing, and also each character has abilities. As you go through the game, you start with like 2 and you get 5 by the end of it per character. You get 3 characters in battle, and it's very placement focused too. So each ability did like a line of damage or a T of damage or a cross of damage. And so your character's placement and the enemy's placement played a big role in sort of like the overall strategy of battle, which was really nice. I felt like there was a lot going in on the combat that like made it interesting and engaging, and wasn't just like, we're playing Pokemon.
I'm glad to hear that. I did play this game for a demo, and I don't think it gave it a very like fair chance. I was a little bit mean to it. I feel like I might have ragged on like the art style a little bit just because it was a little bit simpler. But
it is kind of interesting though, seeing like the perspective of you playing it versus me playing it, because
yeah. Well, I also only played the demo, and like I'm sure that the full story is probably a lot better.
Yeah, the full story, we'll get into that right now, is phenomenal. I mean, I say phenomenal, but I use phenomenal in a sense of like, it was really good, but also kind of plain. The writing was a little bit cheesy at times, but still like it conveyed the messages overall really well. It's a very traditional coming of age story. You play as the younger sister, the sort of like black sheep of the family. You know, you don't have any of the magical powers. You're just the ordinary. Your sister went to magic school and everything. But in the end, not even in the end, in the beginning, you get magic powers, and you're the one who gets to save your sister this time. So it's very much that sort of like living in your sibling's shadow. How do you break out of that? I think a lot of the themes are very good in that sense. And the game is like radically inclusive. Fucking, it's so amazing. There's so much beautiful representation in this game. There are gay characters, there are queer characters, there's non-binary characters. Like there's a character that uses pronouns. They go by Zimz, and it just like all of it is completely normalized. It's not like these are talking points about the characters. It's just the character is gay, and like that is them. It's not their whole personality. They're just gay, and this one just happens to be non-binary. And it's such good inclusion, and it does it in a way that doesn't feel like it's like trying to make a point out of it. It is just like, it's just representation of LGBTQ plus people getting to be LGBTQ plus in like a real world. It's so great. I fucking absolutely loved the inclusion in this. Like minor spoilers, like you find out not even until like 2/3 the way through the game that like the main character, the character that you've been playing this whole time, is gay. And you end up in a fucking a relationship with one of the other female characters in the game. Like, super good. And it's like, it's not a big deal. It's not like, it's just beautiful representation, and I really fucking enjoyed it. It was like, it felt like such a beautiful take on youth magic, especially since like so much of the conversation of this style and everything is co-opted by fucking TERFs right now. And it was so good to pull away from that kind of discussion about it and just have this world and fucking school of magic and kids growing up in it that were just like inclusive and fucking amazing, beautiful representation.
We can say it. How would you compare this to Harry Potter?
Fucking 50 times better. 50 times better. Like, it doesn't have the same universe that Harry Potter has fleshed out over the course of, like, 15 books. But, like, there is no underlying anti-Semitism. Like, there's fucking beautiful representation for all groups of people. It's inclusive. It's great. It handles really serious topics really well. Like, I fucking... miles better than Harry Potter. Miles better. This game deserves this. Instead of continuing to talk about fucking Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling and all that shit, we should just stop talking about that and start talking about this game. Because it's so good.
It seems really cool.
Yeah.
And there's a character that shares my name.
Yeah, and there's a Bax in there. There's a Bax.
There's a little Bax.
And it. And not only is the LGBTQ plus representation great, it also has incredible like mental health representation and conversations too. Like there is a character with really bad anxiety, and there's conversations and a character with PTSD and dealing with those symptoms, and like there are talks about depression, and there's talks about grief and loss and like consent and how to handle your emotions and stuff. There's so many like really good talking points that are just layered in this game, and all of it just feels normalized, which is beautiful. Like none of it becomes like huge problems, none of it becomes like obstacles that like, oh, this whole game is about one character conquering their anxiety. It's like, nah, this character just has anxiety and we're all working our best to make them feel included, and like how do we make the world work for this person with anxiety? And like it's so good. It's fucking beautiful. There's a moment that I have to talk about because like I found it such a profound representation in sort of these topics and things. And it's one of the it might be a bit of a spoiler, so a real small spoiler. Skip ahead like 20 seconds. I don't think we need to mark the whole section. One of the characters has PTSD. And they were in this sort of like liminal space in between the world where it's like full of like shadow monsters and stuff, and they got attacked. That's what caused their PTSD about this place. And when you revisit the place, the character has a panic attack as a result of this. Like they start freaking out, they can't control themselves, and your character, like you are all trying to get out before you get attacked by this thing, and they sit down and they're having a panic attack, freaking out, and your character is like, well, we have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. And you go over to grab them to get them out. And in the process, the character screams, don't touch me, because they're freaking out right now. But your character grabs them and pulls them out of the area anyways. And the next moment, your character walks up to them and apologizes. And it's so fucking profound to me. And this idea and this whole like cultural shift of like taking accountability and things like that your character apologizes to this character because you violated their consent. Like they told you not to touch them, and you walk up and you're like, I am so sorry I touched you. Like you asked me not to, but I felt like we were in danger and I had to do something. I had to get you out of there. I'm really sorry that I touched you. And it's this fucking really beautiful moment of just like, you don't blame the other character for breaking down. It's not their fault that they were having a hard time. It is your fault for doing what they asked you not to do still, even though you were looking out for them. Like, it's such a good moment.
I like that. There need to be more games that are like that provide those sort of small moments and those little messages, because like it's kind of like it's small, but it's important.
It's really important, and like it's stuck with me. Like it's such a small moment in the game. Like it not even 2 full cutscenes really. Like probably 12 boxes of dialogue, and that moment probably stuck with me more than everything else in this game, just because of how profound and impactful.
I love that.
Yeah, really, really good game. Talks about things really well. Does it in such a good way that like you can learn from it. It's smart. It's not like. It's not overwhelming or making it the center of the focus or anything. Beautiful, beautiful game.
I was just going to say, how's the gameplay?
Gameplay is... All right, so we're going to get into that a little bit. Gameplay was good. I was enjoying it. The combat was engaging and everything. But on that subject, it's got some really good accessibility options for combat. Going on like the very specific timing for combat and everything. There's a setting you can turn on that makes all of your reactions automatically great, so you don't have to push the button for the timing, which is fantastic if you zone out during combat and can't keep focus, or if like you have bad reflexes or some a reason why you can't push the buttons quick enough or something. It's great. It turns it into like almost autonomous. All you have to do is select your attacks. And also, there's a button you can enable to just enable instant victory. So, like, it just becomes another combat prompt that you can push a button and it kills all the enemies and gives you the XP. Like, so just skip the fight altogether. Which is another, like, great. If I found myself by the end of it, I was getting bored of the combat. I was zoning out and checking out and not, like, really having fun fighting. But I was still really invested in the story and wanted to see the end. So I just enabled all of the combat options, skipped through the fights, and like just got to enjoy the rest of the story. Something that I would not have done if I could not have enabled those options. I would have probably stopped about chapter 8, but I was able to get through the rest of it because they had those options. And like by the time I had gotten bored of it, they had a way to skip past the parts that I was bored of.
That's interesting, because that sort of plays into a whole accessibility argument that is really big in the industry right now, where a lot of games are coming out nowadays where they don't have necessarily like options for people to play them in like an easy mode or in like a more story-based format rather than focusing on like the skill of it. Like
yeah.
And this seems like a game that you can enjoy regardless of your skill level.
Absolutely. And I really enjoyed that about it, is that like that I got to a point where I wasn't enjoying it and I could still enjoy it because they had the right settings in place and had thought of it. And there's a lot of really great puzzles too that I was still actively enjoying the puzzles. I just like fighting, 4 things of combat in between puzzles was kind of a drag. So like I got to do the part that I still enjoyed, the puzzles, without having to worry about the combat that I wasn't enjoying at that point.
Oh, I wish more RPGs would have that feature, because grinding is the most thankless job in the world.
And that's kind of the nice part about the instant victory too, is it still gave you XP. So, like, if you wanted to do the boss fights still, you could skip the grinding, just get the XP from the mobs for free, and then still do the challenge of the boss fights if you wanted to do that.
That's nice.
And
that's really nice.
A step further, using these options didn't disable achievements. I could instant victory a boss and still get the achievement for it.
That's cool.
So,
what's up, baby?
On that note, it was another fairly easy game to 100%. I think there were only like 4, maybe 5 achievements outside of the main game stuff, and that was to like collect the hidden collectibles, which most of them were very apparent. They're like sparkly little gems that show up as you're walking around. Pretty apparent. Most of them weren't off the beaten path. And to do the optional bosses. So like real easy game to 100% too. I would absolutely recommend this game. This is the kind of art that like we should be supporting as a society. Like if you like Harry Potter but don't like the anti-Semitic turf shit, like this will absolutely fill a lot of that void. And like it's such a refreshing and inclusive take on real world issues. It feels validating. It's fun. It resonates with you in a lot of like topics and stuff. It's really good. It's so
scratch
good.
That Harry Potter itch.
Yeah, this is the kind of shit that like this charity this month is like doing, which is it's so good.
Yeah.
I think representation is beautiful and important, and like this game does it so fucking well.
I will ask, are there any android girls in this game?
There's a slime girl. There's a lot of like demons. There's
demons.
There's sort of a Prince of Darkness.
That's similar to our next game.
I can't think of any mech girls. No, I don't think there's any android girls at all.
Oh.
No.
Well, that's unfortunate. Our next game has some mech girls for you, though. Panzer Paladin, developed and published by Tribute Games. They have also developed and published Flinthook, Wizorb, Mercenary Kings, Ninja Senki DX, and Curses and Chaos. The only one that I really know from there is Wizorb and Mercenary Kings. Mercenary Kings is sort of like, from what I understand, like multiplayer Metal Slug.
I feel like I've played Mercenary Kings.
You probably have. I was given Mercenary Kings recently by a viewer, so I'll probably play it at some point.
Oh no! That's Fubar gave me this, but I have not played it.
Yeah, we'll play it at some point. The price of this game is $20, and the only other DLC are these two little optional OSTs, the 8-bit version and the regular version. Also, it has a free challenge DLC that is just available right off the bat. So what is it? It is a 8-bit inspired retro throwback action platformer. It's similar to Mega Man in its structure, in that it has this like an introductory level to sort of introduce you to the mechanics and everything, and then it lets you tackle every other boss in any order that you want. You can play as this giant mech, and you have the ability to use tons of these disposable weapons and a shield to mow down enemies. The weapons are similar to sort of like Breath of the Wild in that like they all have a durability, and you're always kind of cycling through more new weapons. Almost every enemy will drop a weapon that you can collect, and weapons are used for your regular attack. However, they can also be broken to cast a spell, or thrown to do range damage, though throwing does break the weapon. You can save up weapons. If you say like level a bunch of times, you can save all your weapons from your multiple playthroughs, and you can take them to the laboratory, and you can actually convert it to health, making your failed runs sort of count towards some permanent progress to make it a little bit easier for you to beat in the future. Which I think that's an interesting mechanic, but it does still make this is an NES hard style game. There's lives in it, and like if you don't make it to the end of the stage, you just gotta start the stage over. It's you gotta learn the levels, you gotta get good, and you gotta figure out a game plan before you can sort of tackle each stage. You can actually hop out of the mech at any time. You have this like little whip that you can use, both for navigation and as a little attack. The android is named Flame, and she works as a squire to pilot a paladin. She sort of reminds me a little bit, I don't know, just of Asuka from Evangelion. She kind of gives me that vibe. There are, like I mentioned earlier, 2 different OSTs that you can choose from in the game, but there's also these options to change the display, either from like a perfect pixel display, where every pixel is displayed in like perfect resolution on the screen, or there's also a mimic CRT mode and a CRT with a curve. I liked with the curve because it was really nostalgic to how I used to play a lot of these older games on like a traditional CRT. And it does look pretty good. I like it a lot. It honestly is a little bit of it's hard to look at with the perfect pixel mode because the CRT kind of blends the colors together nicely. Gameplay wise, you have an attack button with an upwards jump special, sort of like in Smash Brothers, where it's sort of like an extra little height jump, and a down air that's sort of like the shovel from Shovel Knight, where you can sort of use it to bounce along enemies, but it's not too much of a jump. You have the jump button, you have a throw button, you have a backdash, and your shield only covers half of your body, so crouching is a thing that you can do to block low attacks. You switch your active weapons with the bumpers, and then you can hold left and right trigger to break your weapon to cast a spell, like I mentioned earlier. The spells can be anything like a beam to like a support spell, like healing, gives you a little bit of health back, or buffs like deflect and absorb, which can deflect, abilities or absorb attacks. And I think that's actually you absorb. I don't know what that is. You absorb the attack that you do to an enemy, and you get health from it, or you absorb attacks that come to you. I don't know. I'll figure that out later. Maybe I won't. I counted 11 levels in the story mode with a remixed version in the campaign. The Steam version weirdly says that there are 17 levels, and I don't know where those levels are. Maybe they come later. I'm a little bit confused about that. But the levels that are available are as follows. You have the Horseman, which is sort of like the introductory level. That's in Canada. And he actually helps you out throughout the game. He like shows up at random points throughout the game later. Then you have Lilith in the USA, who is a succubus. You have Mictlanteculi that you have to defeat in Mexico, who is the lord of the land of the dead. You have Dujanos from Scotland, who's a giant dragon. Boeoeg from Switzerland, who's based on the boogeyman. And they have like this tradition in Switzerland apparently of burning the bogue, where you do that to drive out the winter and herald in the spring. So this guy is sort of like a big yeti snow person. Then there's Medusa from Greece. You know Medusa, snake hair. Baba Yaga, Russia. This is the like ferocious supernatural woman from Slavic folklore, and also John Wick. You have Anubis from Egypt, the god of the dead, mummification, embalming, the afterlives, cemeteries, tombs, and the underworld. I didn't realize how many things they were the god of until I looked it up. Popo Bawa from Tanzania is another boss, who is an evil bat-winged spirit. Nian from China is another boss. They are like a lion who's a key character in the Chinese New Year. It's the reason behind a bunch of practices during like the celebration, such as like wearing red clothes and celebrating with like noise from drums and fireworks. And finally, there's the Gasha Dokuro from Japan that are giant skeletons that are said to be 15 times larger than the average person and are created from the amassed bones of people who died from starvation in battle without being buried. The point that I'm trying to make about reading all that out is that like all of the demons that you're fighting in this game that are like the main bosses and also like the sort of backdrop for all of these different levels are all based on like real world folklore and real world history and legends, and I think that's really cool. It adds an element of authenticity a little bit to the bosses, and it makes it very memorable. And like I now know the name of the Popobawa, and I feel kind of happy about that, you know. I think it's a really, really cool theming for all of the different bosses, and it's a lot of different variety in terms of the different stages that you get to go to. One thing that I should mention is that the game, in its sort of like 8-bitness, has like a limited color palette, and so each stage looks like super colorful and vibrant, though it has like a limited color palette. For example, Egypt has these like floating pyramids at the beginning of the stage, and it's like super futuristic, but it also has these like deep purples and pinks and blues and oranges all over the level. And it's like you would normally think of Egypt as like a like plain yellow desert, but it's like this beautiful mix of colors, and I think that it's kind of plays into this sort of limited aspect of the retro throwback.
Mm-hmm.
There are other modes available in the game besides the story mode with all the different bosses and levels. There is a blacksmith mode where you can make your own weapons, and I did make a weapon, but I truly could not figure out how to use it in the game. I do not know. I tried and I couldn't figure it out. I noticed that after I died randomly, like the boss from the tutorial level, the horseman, showed up, and he gave me an item that I'm pretty sure now actually came from the Steam Workshop. So I used that item on the boss, Anubis, and it was the only reason why I beat it. Thank you, Walkies. It was like a dog on a leash, and it attacks really quickly. But I also got like Isaac from Binding of Isaac, which apparently the little boy's skull is a blunt object. I thought that was kind of funny. I also couldn't really figure out how to upload like my creation to the workshop. Not that I'd want to, because it was a penis sword named the Ejaculator 2. But just something I wanted to bring up. Are you looking this up right now? Are you trying to figure out if there is a way? Because I couldn't figure it out.
I am.
Because like when you look on the actual like Steam page for it, it says stuff that like it confuses me. It's like there is a workshop mode where you can make your things, and there is a thing that you can upload to, but it's like I don't know how. Like And it's weird because there was also it says that there's 17 levels when there's only 11 levels in the game that I can count.
Okay. That's so interesting. No. Okay, so
How does it work?
when you make the weapon, whenever a mid-level boss is encountered, they will drop a player weapon selected at random.
Okay.
So anytime you fought a mid-level boss, whatever it dropped was just a random player-made weapon in the blacksmith.
I guess it just auto-uploads then.
Yeah.
Because, like, I literally was getting stuff that, like, I looked up in the workshop, and, like, there it was. It was in the workshop. I gotta see if the Ejaculator 2 is in the workshop now. I'd almost feel bad if somebody got the Ejaculator 2. Because it is just a giant penis.
That's what it looks like, and it says the most upvoted ones have a higher chance of dropping.
Interesting. Wow. So it's a really interesting mechanic, but it also kind of sucks because you can't use anything that you make. You know?
There's no guaranteed way,
to...
yeah.
No, not even a guaranteed way. Like, you would have to roll for hours and hours and hours in order to get the one that you actually made. Like, that, I think, kind of sucks. I wish that you could use them at least in, like, the challenge mode or something like that. But it is an interesting feature. And I will say that it really did spice up my single-player playthrough, just getting random, interesting, fun weapons that are just, like, off the wall and crazy. But they only showed up kind of every once in a while, and they were, like, only, you know, like you said, after the midpoint. Usually after I die, I would, like, show up, and then there would be, like, a mid-boss, like, that just appears randomly in front of me when he wasn't there before, and then he gives me the item. But yeah, there's also a speedrun mode for people who beat the game. They can try their best at running through all the levels to get one top first, second, or third place times. There's like a rating system in there for how fast you go. There's also the same rating system for the 11 extra challenge missions that are in the free DLC, and they are pretty hard to get the par time, but they are pretty fun as well. They're neat little challenges that are very welcome, I'll say. But there's, besides that, and like the little remixed story mode that you unlock after you beat the main story mode, that I imagine like it reworks the main stages and maybe some of the boss patterns as well. There's not too much to talk about here. It's pretty short. They're very well drawn animated cutscenes that sort of set the stage, very much like an NES game. Think Ninja Gaiden. You know, like the planet is in danger from demons to all parts of the globe, and the only person who can save the day is a lone self-defense android pilot. I didn't beat more than one level of this, but I did try a whole bunch of the different levels, and they are very different and fun. It's just pretty difficult. You know, if you've played an NES game, you kind of know what to expect here. There's no options like the NES games in the Switch store to like pause what is happening and rewind. You know, you gotta just tough it out. You gotta man up if you're gonna beat it. But it does give you ways to sort of beat your head against the wall by increasing your health with all the different, weapon upgrades and stuff.
Plus, you might get a dick weapon.
You might get a dick weapon. You might get the Ejaculator too. You very well. That's I think a good selling point. You could put that on the tin. Might get the Ejaculator too during your playthrough. The results may vary. Dying right before the end of a level can be really frustrating and demoralizing. That's just a fact of these sort of old school type games, and there are some instant death traps sprinkled throughout the levels that make this much worse. I don't love any sort of instant death mechanic personally, because it sort of punishes just not noticing one thing, and then you have to restart the entire thing over from the beginning, and that doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel great to sort of get past it necessarily. It's just sort of like, oh, thank God I got past that. That's my feeling anyway. I think it's hard for me to get into fully for the podcast, and I do worry that some of that comes from the level design that relies too heavily on this sort of trial and error to learn what is there in order to sort of progress further. But I mean, I also don't really like Mega Man, and that's the same shit. So I think that fans of old school throwback style games will probably really enjoy this, and there is a lot to enjoy here because of that.
Fair enough.
Milk me. Just milk me. just milk me. Just milk me, Daddy. I couldn't think of a better segue.
All
just
right,
milk me,
the
Daddy.
Prince of Milk, the Milky Way Prince, is our next game, the Vampire Star.
Thank you.
This is a game developed by iGuys and Lorenzo Radelli. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but published by what happened to the publisher name here? Oh man. Published by Santa Raggioni? Ragone? Ragoni. They did Wheels of Aurelia, Photonica, and the Mirror Moon EP. A couple little games here. A lot of like really very stylized.
Stylized. Throwing pasta at the wall?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This game is $9.99 on the Steam store. And it's a visual novel. You click things and make them say the things when you click them. That's about it. It's a visual novel. The genre is real straightforward.
Nava.
It's a visual novel. It's about as in depth as the gameplay gets in a visual novel.
We're breaking down. We're losing it.
The visuals in this game I thought were fantastic, though. I really enjoyed the sort of art and the artistic expression and the style throughout it. It felt like it was meant to be abrasive and constantly changing and like brutal but comforting. I think the art, the sound, and the style all really reflected the themes of this game. And it's all visual novels. It's all about the story, honestly. And so like probably spoilers here. And this game in specific,
just for the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. This game in specific is entirely about BPD. So much so that it gives a trigger warning at the start of the game. And since, in that same sense, in this spoiler section, we might be talking about some, like, heavy themes and stuff presented in this game. You might be sensitive to it. So, like, just a heads up, we'll probably mention, like, self-harm, abuse, BPD, things like that. So, if any of those are, like, super rough for you.
Skip to 1 hour, 26 minutes, and 32 seconds. Also, real quick, just wanted to give a heads up because we didn't actually mention it in the text of the podcast. BPD stands for borderline personality disorder. Anyway, have fun with the rest of the Milky discussion.
And I want to start off by saying, like, I was kind of conflicted about their presentation in BPD in this game because I think it sort of fell into the trap of, like, presenting it as the stereotypical, like, people with BPD are like monsters and demons and like they have no control over who they are and they're like shitty to other, like it kind of fell into that trap. Even so, in the visual representation, there are a few moments where they make the main character with BPD present as a demon, like 4 arms and like messed up face and like mirror reflections of themselves and stuff all over. So I think they kind of fell into a trap there with like the presentation of it being very stereotypical, but I also kind of felt like it was really deliberate. I think there was a lot of like artistic talk about it going on in here, and like the way we view it through that lens and like the society's vision of that versus like how the character is, because if I remember right, when at the end of the game you play through as the primary character with BPD, and as you play through that character, you never see yourself that way. The only time you're seen as like a fucked up weird little demon is through the lens of other people. And so like I can kind of see the sort of artistic presentation of like that is the way society perceives it. But face value, it could very much be taken as like this is just a pretty shitty portrayal of BPD. So I think it falls into that trap a little bit. But I think it's still, and the metaphors fall a little bit flat. They primarily focus on like the impact of BPD on others. The idea of the Milky Way Prince, like you're repeatedly referred to as a star. An unstable star. The closer you get to it, the more unstable it becomes. Things like that. And the vampire prince directly refers to like leeching from other people. So I think the metaphors there are kind of a little negative in the portrayal as well. but also it's written as an autobiographical piece from the author's perspective of being in a relationship with someone with BPD. So I kind of understand why it's presented in that lens instead of in the lens of like someone with BPD. So I think it hits on those topics a little rough. It falls into some stereotypes, but I think the conversation it's having in general is really good. I think it hits on a lot of things. I think the two main characters kind of show a dichotomy of BPD and the sort of like ideas of like self-sabotage and self-harm, and one of the characters is very much like at every turn second guessing themselves and falling apart and blaming the other person and trying to sabotage the relationship, while the other character on the opposite end of the spectrum is like immediately infatuated with this person and like falling in love and obsessing over this person. This person becomes their world in like a matter of knowing them for a summer. So it shows like a really good dichotomy there between the two main characters. But I think it also does a really good job of showing the sort of like internalized struggle of BPD and the ideas of like the constantly doubting yourself and being unsure about the world around you, and like the paranoia and the loss and the grief that like people are feeling constantly. And so I think it does a really good job sort of portraying the internal dialogue and the external dialogue with that sort of idea of the way it's impacting the people around you versus like also showing the way it's impacting the person themselves. So I as someone who has been BPD is like a huge part of my life, and so I, as someone who's been around people with it, as someone who has been, in sort of circles like that for a while, and the way it's sort of impacted me and everything, I think the way it presents it is there's something kind of cathartic about the presentation of it. I don't know what it is. I have not spent enough time resolving how this game makes me feel playing it to really speak into it.
You told me that like you actually had to stop playing it at one point, and you were actually 5 minutes away from the ending.
Yeah, so the game it's only about 2 hours long. And as I was playing it, it got to a point where just like the themes and the idea and the way everything's presented, it was just too overwhelming for me. I resonated too much with the stuff that was being talked about, and like I had to distance myself from it. Come to find out, 5 minutes before the game was over, like that, it was at the very end of the game that it just became too much for me to continue to play. So I think it talks about the topics in a really good way that sort of resonates. I'd have to spend more time with it to figure out why it resonates so well, but it definitely could just be that like it portrays the impact really well. But I also feel like it also portrays the struggle really well as well. And I think I think there's a lot of themes and dialogue that even if you don't struggle with like BPD, or if you don't know anyone with BPD, I think there are a lot of themes and things that can be related to, because like BPD is often used as just like a sort of catch-all diagnosis for like, we don't want to figure out what's wrong with you, so we'll just label it. It's kind of like it's been compared to like a modern day diagnosis of hysteria, because like oftentimes there are underlying things that are causing the issues, but people don't treat the underlying things because the symptoms are so bad in a sense that like it becomes about the symptoms more than about like what's causing it, and it just gets written off as like, oh, you're acting unstable, so to speak. You have BPD. Figure it out, because we don't want to. Which is like it's kind of a shitty catch-all right now, in the sense, but which means that like I think a lot of the themes and ideas and struggles of BPD can also resonate really well with people who don't have it, because it's also comorbid with a bunch of things too, and so like symptoms and of bipolar and ADHD and PTSD and CPTSD, like all of those things, and depression and anxiety, they all go into a BPD diagnosis, basically. Like they all show very similar symptoms and stuff, and some of the struggles are very similar, broadly speaking. So I think if you struggle with it in other areas with mental health, like you might resonate in some areas with this game and some of the themes that are presented. So I think the game handles talking about mental health and some of the conversations around it, especially BPD. I think it handles it pretty well. And I think it's a really interesting portrayal and lens to view it through. Again, very short, like 2 hours, on a less serious note. What's up?
I'm really glad that you took this one, because I don't know that I would have been able to develop that much of an insight about it. I feel like you've dealt with this more personally, and that you might have a more sort of, like, you know, I said it, personal experience with this sort of game.
I feel like this game is a very personal experience, and I think it was made for a very niche crowd. I don't think this game is for everyone. I think everyone can learn something playing it, but also there's, as I said, the presentation and some of the themes are like, they're kind of at face value, and I could see them being taken poorly at face value, so it's hard to just recommend anyone play this to like learn more about BPD or mental health stuff. If you are going to play this game through that lens to sort of learn about it, then I definitely say, you know, do more research on the side and kind of understand the themes and why they're being presented this way in the game. Don't just sort of take it at face value, because it's a really shitty box that a lot of people with a BPD diagnosis get stuck into, is that like you are just a shitty person and you're a parasite to the people around you, and like it's a really hard thing, I think, for a lot of people, and I think it's kind of an unfair presentation at face value, but I think the presentation is doing a little bit more than that. But it does no good for anyone who's just playing the game to kind of dip their toes into it. I think it's a entry point if you want to take it more seriously and like really learn about some of these issues. Again, achievements in this one are pretty easy to get to. On a totally different note, I almost 100%ed this one. I just got to go through and like do the other two endings really, and that's it. It's pretty easy to get them all there. It's like 2 hours long. There's 3 different endings. If you get all 3 endings, you've basically 100%ed the game. Like, very easy game. It's a visual novel. I enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time, you know, a lot of introspective time with this game, and like it resonated with me really well. I don't think it will resonate with everyone, but I think the people that it will resonate with, this could be a really, like, a pretty impactful piece.
I agree. I 100% agree. That's kind of it for our main set of games. The next game also our very impactful extra we have here today from Gessinimo Games, a one-man dev by the name of Salman Shuri. This is a game called Fistful of Nothing.
Okay.
Fistful of Nothing is very interesting. It was made solely for distribution for the Humble Trove. This guy's made a couple other games, mainly for like itch.io, a couple other platforms like Punch Golf, Bun Bun, Tap Tricks, Sealed Estate, 10 milligrams, stuff like that. So what is it? The basic premise is that you go to work one day and then everyone there has a gun and wants to kill you. In order to escape, you have to get to the elevator and run past everyone. So the whole gimmick of this game is that, you know, you got nothing. It's a fistful of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still going through and sort of challenging these guys. Eventually you get a gun and you have no ammo in this gun. You just use it to psych people out, to intimidate guards, to take hostages, and get to the elevator, essentially. It's like a pacifist version of Hotline Miami in sort of in terms of the pace and how it feels and the top-down nature of it. I think it's really interesting. There in the story, it kind of has this like irreverent, like, why am I enjoying this? Like at first he's like, I'm in danger. Oh no. But then he's like, I like this. I want to do more. And then it just sort of ends abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that there might have been like some sort of unreliable narrator thing going on, but the game didn't really last long enough for it to develop any sort of foothold on that. It's a very light story. You can beat it within an hour. And I do have a minor complaint that there are some grammatical and spelling errors that it feels like could be easily addressed. And I don't know if that was the artist's intent or not.
You elitist piece of shit.
I know. I feel like a fucking asshole for being like, use spell check, please. But,
That's the difference. I wouldn't have even noticed them.
But I have to say, it is a very neat idea for a game. I think I might enjoy it more as an idea than I did in its execution. Not to say that it's a bad execution. I think that its execution is very solid. I just wish that it didn't end so abruptly. It's not the kind of game that I would go out of my way to play, but I'm glad that I did play it. And if anyone's wanting to experiment with what a pacifist game might look like, I think that this is an interesting
I wonder
option
if we
to
know
look into.
anyone who might enjoy a pacifist experience.
I wonder who could enjoy it. We have a friend named Pacifist. Kaz.
So do you think this is something that might be expanded out into a bigger idea later, or is this very much like this is the product, you're never getting another idea like this?
Well, it seems like this guy does a lot of game jam games.
Okay.
Like he will just sort of like pump a game out to sort of hit a deadline, and I think that's honestly really good.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's a one-man dev.
So probably something that won't be expanded on much.
Yeah, probably not. I think it's probably like a pump and dump, and that's fine. I think that you're laughing.
I'm laughing at you using the term pump and dump to describe that.
It's just like you work really hard for a couple of days and then you're done.
Yeah, that's what that term means. Yep.
Yep, that's what that term means. We create new terms here on the Bundle Bourgeoisie. We create new things all the time. It's part of our brand. That's about it. That's all I have to say about that game. It's neat. And
that's it. We made it through them all. All right, what's your game of the month, baby?
My game of the month for sure is Sid Meier's Civilization 6. I love Sid Meier's. Like I said, Sid Meier 5 was my very first game on Steam, so of course I naturally like the sequel. Not really much to say there.
Yep, absolutely. Mine is Eichenfell. I liked Milky Way Prince, but I don't like media that makes me feel sad. It's Eichenfell for sure. It's phenomenal. It's beautiful representation. It's everything that our media should be pushing to be. It's fantastic. Eichenfell. Play it. Everyone play it.
I'm so happy that I got you to play that one and that you like it so much.
I love it. It is so far my game of the year, probably. Like,
damn, that's pretty fucking high praise. Go play Eichenfell.
Which is like buck wild because it's a turn-based RPG first of all, and I fucking hate turn-based games.
That's why I was kind of surprised that you liked it as much as you did. Anyway,
it's amazing what a story can do.
Yeah, it's amazing what a good story can do to a game. What else have we been playing, though?
I have only been watching Bo Burnham's Inside. That has consumed my life. I don't play games anymore. That is my only media now.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I've been doing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Forza Horizon 4. Weirdly, I've been on like a racing game binge. I'm trying to finish Lion Quest Infinity, but it's a bit of a slog. A developer sent that to us, and I really want to review it, but I want to play the whole game before I review it, and there's a lot, and it's getting to the point where it's a little tedious. Bloons TD6 is a thing that I also was requested to play, as well as Victorum. Those are both some interesting games. Victorum about being like a TNT wizard. We played Among Us, For the King, Pokemon Go. I've been playing a little bit on my phone. And I have no shame. Honey Pop 2 Double Date is an incredible game that I bought and I own. Okay, so one final little segment here that I just want to run through, hopefully pretty quickly, is some real quick E3 news, because we are recording this in the middle of E3, and I spent too much time watching these live streams to not just say nothing about it on the podcast. So, big obvious shout-outs to Elden Ring. So that gameplay actually came out on that. I mean, finally, we've seen it. Also, Halo Infinite. It exists! And the multiplayer is going to be free on Xbox, apparently. Forza Horizon 5, also, it takes place in Mexico. And Guardians of the Galaxy was half of the Square Enix conference, but it looks pretty fun.
That sounds about right.
and I'm gonna do a game blast of literally so many games. So I'm not gonna stop to really give too much of info about each of these. I'm just gonna give a little snippet of each, so you can look it up more for more info if you're interested. These are games that are kind of maybe going under the radar, maybe not. Who knows? First up is The Wandering Village. It is a city builder where you build a city on top of a giant moving animal, like a ptera tortoise. It looks dope. Sacrifice is a new RPG from the developers of Warsaw. I just want to give that a shout out because I loved Warsaw. Tinykin, it looks adorable. You have like a bunch of these like tiny little creatures following you around. It gave me Pikmin vibes. I don't know how accurate that is. Solstice is a cool new Dark Soulsy looking character action game. Gloomwood, very similar to retro throwback shooters like Dusk. It looks very satisfying and fun. A nice first person shooter game. Ixion, Ixion, a space city colony simulator. It is very similar to Frostpunk, it seems like, where you have like a limited sort of space to build this colony and this civilization, and you're managing it, making decisions along the way as you're trying to fare all the way through a long journey in space. Lemniscate is a turn-based combat strategy FPS where you have 25 seconds to make an action in a first-person shooter game, and then that action is saved, and then you play through that again a second time, and you keep doing that over and over again until an army of yourself and the other person is like fighting each other, and there's like chaos happening from all the different clones fighting each other. It looks really interesting. Yeah, Orcs Must Die 3. You don't have to say much else there. If you played the first Orcs Must Die, you know what that is. Tower defense. 2 new high-budget Vampire the Masquerade games are coming out. Swan Song and Blood Hunt. There is a food fight-based party arena combat game called Raw Men, which I love. That's a premium name. Raw Men.
So good.
Dodgeball Academia looks dope. It's a literal dodgeball RPG. There is Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster that was briefly shown and announced. It is a remaster of 1 through 6, all of the original Final Fantasy games. And then also in Final Fantasy news, there was Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, which is a character action game from Team Ninja. It looks like Devil May Cry mixed with a Souls game, but set in the Final Fantasy universe. It looks pretty interesting, actually. Then there's is it Silt? A atmospheric indie game, sort of in the vein of Limbo. Citizen Sleeper, you're gonna want to look into this one, Guff. It is Interstellar Capitalist Hell, the video game.
Love it.
Moonglow Bay is right up my alley. It's a life sim fishing game where you run a shop and do RPG things. That's everything that I love in a game. Sign me up. Norco is a sci-fi American Gothic point-and-click adventure game that looks very interesting. It immerses the player in the sinking suburbs and verdant industrial swamps of Louisiana's petrochemical hinterlands. I copy-pasted that from the Steam page because I thought that was cool.
Nice.
The Big Con is a game where you play as a 90s teenager con artist, and it looks really cute and really funny. There also is not 1, not 2, but 4 upcoming FPS games heavily inspired by Soviet Russia, and in particular the area around Chernobyl. And shockingly, there isn't even one from the Metro franchise. There is Atomic Heart, which looks like Soviet Fallout, single-player exploration RPG. Chernobylite, which supposedly is a 3D scanned recreation of the Exclusion Zone. It is a single-player survival RPG.
Damn.
Yeah. Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl is a sequel to the classic franchise Stalker, but it looks like very modern and updated, and looks to be very interesting. And finally, Pioneer, which has been described as an MMO version of Stalker. So, Pioneer, Pioneer is the actual name of it. And then there are some beta signups for a couple of games. I'm just going. We got Babylon's Fall, which is one of the new games from Platinum. It has an odd art style that it looks like it's a Photoshop filter. I don't know if you know what I mean, but when you see gameplay, you'll probably know what I mean. There is Phantom's Abyss that has a beta sign up and like Twitch influencer thing that's going on right now that I signed up for. I hope I get it. It's for this asynchronous multiplayer thing where you get to see the ghosts of other players' attempts as they're running through this procedurally generated dungeon. And every player only gets one shot in the dungeon before it kicks you out and sends you to a new dungeon. So only one player can even beat the dungeon too. Once one player beats a dungeon, then it closes and the next one opens, essentially. So that game looks super dope. I really want to try that. Phantom Abyss. Then there are 2 phone games that I was kind of curious about, maybe looking more into, called Nier Reincarnation and Final Fantasy VII First Soldier. Looks like interesting now that I have a phone that can actually play these games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there was the Devolver Max Pass Plus. It was... Devolver is always chaotic every year around E3, and I love whatever they try to do. This year, they smelled blood in the water with Microsoft doing all of this Game Pass promotion, which, by the way, their Game Pass is getting pretty beefy. It's looking like a real premium Netflix-style subscription here. With like lots of
we're about to launch the Humble podcast, the Game Pass podcast.
We are going to be it's a completely free subscription service for the podcast with some premium elements. It's a new era of monetization as a service. I'm just cribbing the Devolver Max Pass Plus now. But it was pretty hilarious, their whole marketing thing. It's literally just like a newsletter, and like the premium parts of the newsletter are you going to buy a video game. And all I really want to highlight from this, there are some good games from it, but the main one that I want to highlight is Inscription, which is from Daniel Mullins, and it is sort of like what looks like a card-based action, like a card-based... God, Daniel Mullen games are impossible to describe. He made Pony Island and The Hex, and each one of those games are sort of games that defy description in that they sort of
Inscription
so
has been on my wish list for a real hot minute. Yeah. I know the one you're talking about.
They showed it at E3, and I want to set another reminder, I guess, about it, because like it's just, I think we might have even talked about it before. It just looks so cool.
Yeah,
I love Daniel Mullins. All of his games are kind of mind bending, usually a little bit creepy and kind of fourth wall breaking. And yeah, that's basically it for my highlights of E3 so far. Hopefully that wasn't too super long. I just wanted to give a quick breakdown of a lot of games that I was looking at that were interesting.
The charity this month is the It Gets Better Project. The It Gets Better Project is a global nonprofit that reaches millions of young people each year through inspiring media programming, educational resources, international affiliates in 20 countries plus the United States, and access to an arsenal of community-based service providers. They're all focused on helping LGBTQ plus youth and everything. Super good.
Hell yeah. It's a good one to include. I can fill in.
Absolutely. And to circle back to representation, I can't believe I forgot to mention this. The relationship in Milky Way prints too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're so totally right.
Yeah. Good representation.
I don't know that unless you count the worms as being a representation of worms. I mean, there was representation in Civ now as well. That is a thing. So maybe that is sort of like the theme for this bundle, because that's a thing that we did at one point that we kind of stopped doing is themes. This theme seems to be representation.
Themes a little bit. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
speaking of representation, our question or themes too.
Yeah.
Question for next month. What themes do you feel are underrepresented or that you want? Take 2. Okay. Our question for this month is, what themes do you feel are underrepresented or that you want to see more of out of video games?
Ooh. Well, we'll have to ponder that, think about it, get some viewer responses, and we'll come back on that.
Hell yeah.
So next time
on The Bundle Bourgeoisie.
Paw Paw Paw.
Secret neighbor.
Going under.
Disjointed.
Desolate.
Stubbs the zombie in Rebel Without a Pulse.
And more E3 news. Yeah,
we did it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, that's another one in the books. That's a fucking hour and 50 minutes. Jesus Christ.
God, if you listen to this whole thing, thank fucking Christ. Holy shit, you're the reason we were doing it.
Oh, you know we're going to get it down to like an hour 20.
No, I hope so. You say that. You say that.
It's an hour 20 with a special E3 segment later this week.
No. All right, social media plug.
Yes, Twitter. Join us on Twitter where we tweet once a month about releasing the podcast, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's kind of it right now. We also tweet individually on our own accounts. I mainly tweet whenever I go live. That's mainly what it's used for.
I sometimes will post radical leftist bullshit combined with just dumb jokes, and then mostly just when I go live once a month.
Also, you sometimes tweet about Magic the Gathering rules.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah. I do that too.
Yeah.
And
we stream on Twitch on Gaffocker and Backstab, and we have a Discord as well. Tell us.
Yeah. Our Discord, the Bundle Bourgeoisie. That's where things really pop off. That if you want real like good discussion and chats and stuff, that's where you should go. We are active on that.
Yeah, we have a Steam page with a Steam Curator thing too. We were active on that. We do Steam Curator things.
We also have a TikTok that we're working on getting more active on.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
It's on my to-do list this month, so.
All right. Well, that's it for us. I'm
it.
Sweaty. I'm sticky. It's hot.
I am a fucking swamp boy right now. I am
completely drenched. It's a complete nasty disaster, and I have to go take care of it.
It's so bad. Record highs right now in Colorado.
Yeah.
For the next week, basically.
It's basically a toaster oven in a lot of places. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. Drink your water,
but not the water from your body.
Yeah.
Don't drink the sweat water.
Don't drink. The sweat. That's the sweat water.
Or your piss. About. Don't drink your piss either, David.
Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Damn it, Johnny! Damn it! I thought we would get to do a podcast without another piss joke. No, that's it.